Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Women and children are usually soft targets and the most vulnerable in times of crisis, such as the incessant terrorist attacks in Nigeria's north. Those who are not killed during the attacks are mostly left behind. The unspoken barbarity meted out to them for being booties of war has been at the root of conversations within the global human rights community. But more critical seems to be the life-altering physical and psychological scars they are inflicted with by traumatic experiences. How government handles the question of providing healing and rehabilitation outside of the fundamental duty to protect them is now assuming greater urgency during those conversations. Joining us now to share our thoughts about affording greater protection, healing, and rehabilitation to this very vulnerable group is Ireti Bakare-Yusuf, who is a broadcaster and women and children activist. Good morning, Ireti. Good to have you.
Steve.
Join us again. Always beautiful to have you.
Oh, you're too kind. And you lie a lot, but that's good.
And welcome back from Vienna.
Yeah. Should I speak German?
How many lays
Guten Tag.
did you bring?
Is it Guten Morgen?
Guten Morgen.
Yeah. That's about the only thing.
Wie geht es Ihnen?
Technique. I don't know what that means.
999.
I have no idea what's going on, honestly.
I just said rubbish. It doesn't actually exist.
All right, Ireti, good to have you. But it's not a laughing matter, where we have found ourselves in our nation. Just before you join us in the studio, we were just, of course, revisiting what happened, not only in Kwara, but just even yesterday, in Kaduna. A Reverend Father has been kidnapped, 3 people dead. Kwara is a mess now. And a lot of people are saying that in all of this, the government has failed people. But then what are we doing to the survivors, particularly the women and the children? The IDP camps, in most cases, are a mess. And then nobody seems to be talking in detail, and with sincerity about that situation. That's why you are here. How concerned, how worried, how disappointed are you?
First and foremost, I have to say thank you to Arise. I don't know whose idea it was to actually center and bring platform this particular side of this resurgency. But it's so critically important. And honestly, when I say thank you, I mean thank you. Because it's the part that's been forgotten, that nobody has spoken about. We've had a government, whilst of course we're all aware of the terror and the resurgence of terror within our society, but we've had Donald Trump doing his madness, then we've had a government spending 9 million on what's it called? What's that thing they do? On lobbying. Yeah. And then you have an opposition that's constantly weaponizing what's happening as if this is the first time it's happened. What we haven't had is anybody talking about how this affects women, girls, and children. Because fundamentally, they are often the ones who are, they're uniquely affected. If we go back to the days of GJ, the Chibok girls, because it was girls who had been kidnapped, everybody responded, international community responded, a lot of money was thrown, at all these things. But what you didn't have a coordinated, and a long-term strategy. So what you had is, shoot from the hips response. We put money into schools. Girls must go to schools, IDP camps. But nobody's looking at the violence, the psychosocial, the psychological, the trauma, and that therapy. But then you had the likes of, you remember, Dr. Fatima Akilu.
Yes.
Amazing. And I still remember her work till today. You had the likes of Dr. Fatima Akilu, who specialized in the therapy, actually designing, sort of therapy workshops, community-based initiative, and treatment and healing for these survivors. And we must look at them as survivors as well. We can't just be looking at them as victims, because there's a reason why in the space of advocacy, we call these people survivors rather than victims, because if you look at them as victims, then you start to treat them a particular way. So Dr. Fatima Akilu, who I think she worked with something like 30,000 women on, healing therapy, psychosocial, psychological, and all of that stuff. What we also had back then was a very, if I may say, perhaps, of course, one could argue that it was forced, but you had an active Minister of Women's Affairs. Where is the current Minister of Women's Affairs, Dr. Imam Ibrahim? And incidentally, I had to check her name. That's how invisible she is. I had to check her name this morning, literally before I came here. Where is she? Where is the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs? Because these two should be working together.
Hand in hand.
Hand in hand. Right? So you have all these people who are responsible, because ultimately, we always say government is responsible for our life, for our, health, for our safe keep, But government is forgetting that government fundamentally is also responsible for ensuring not just justice for these women, but the psychosocial therapy, the repairing, the healing, the support. Thank you, the support. That's the word I was looking for.
I want us to speak about, I think we'll go back to the burden of survival that comes for a lot of women. As you said, they're survivors, not just victims, and also reintegration into society, because a lot of them suffer different types of violence, sometimes are married off to some of their captors. And so there's a lot that comes with that. But I also want us to focus on children specifically. I've been speaking about this now for a very long time, for months. Boko Haram and terrorist organizations have child soldiers. We don't look at it like that in Nigeria, but these are children who are being recruited, and often being recruited with food. Hunger is now a tool to recruit these children. How do we have any type of support for children specifically? Because I have seen some for women in terms of reintegration. Do we have any that you know of for children who have been forced into this war?
Not that I'm aware of, actually. Children are often forgotten, and thank God. Thank you for bringing up children, because when I got a call yesterday, it triggered so many things. You're in a state of anger about so many things that's going on in Nigeria, practically all the time. And perhaps we need to be in that state of anger so we don't forget. I was thinking about, we see a lot of kids on the streets in Nigeria, in Lagos, and people are quick to call them urchins. Nobody's thinking.
Street urchins.
Yeah, street urchins. I mean, hideous name. It's really cruel that people actually call them that, because, like Adiswa said, Boko Haram is actually engaging and kidnapping children, turning them into soldiers. Okay, but we also have children who are kidnapped for sex trafficking. Children who are brought to Lagos and they become beggars on the streets. Nobody is looking at the face of that child and wondering, how did you get here? We don't. Because by and large, the world is cruel, but Nigeria is particularly cruel to the vulnerable children. We have to admit it to ourselves, because admitting you have a problem is the first place that you go to solve it. So yes, indeed, that's why you're right. I think in 2018, Nigeria had the highest number of kidnapped children in terror. It's shocking, right? We don't hear it. We don't hear it spoken about. We don't hear it discussed. Okay? But if you look after women, you look after children. But, yes, we have services for women, but it's not enough. Look at the IDP camps. When, you go to an IDP camp, it's full of women and children.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be their safe space. But 7, 8, some would even say 9 out of 10 times, the same people who are supposed to be guarding them and keeping them safe sometimes become their abusers as well. So you have this horrible cycle, but fundamentally, we don't care. We claim to Bomojo and all of that stuff that we care, but we only care about some type of children. We don't care about all children, because for as long as we continue to look at, and every child that's begging on the street was born the same way a prince was born, by a woman.
Yeah, but Ireti, when you say that we don't care and that there's a different type of cruelty that the Nigerian state unwittingly, met out on the vulnerable, particularly the children, does it have anything to do with the fact that the government does not necessarily mean to be mean, but that government is just overwhelmed and possibly disorganized in certain areas? And therefore, if that is the situation, maybe the charge to government ideally would have been to not get into that situation so that you deal with the root causes of what breeds, the vulnerable people, the one that you call WGC, women, girls and children that are vulnerable. Is the Nigerian state overwhelmed by the myriad of wars and conflicts that we are dealing with?
I wouldn't subscribe to that, actually, and I'll tell you why. Government is not just one building. Government is institutions. Societies are built on institutions. That's why you're supposed to have your civil society, you have your ministries, there's something they call them. You have all these institutions that are there. They all have specific jobs that they're supposed to do. So what is clearly apparent, and all of those represent government with the exception of civil society. What is clearly apparent, like I said, is you have a Ministry of Women's Affairs. I mean, the last Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs that we knew was the one that was sacked for stealing money, right? Who's the current one? Well, we must, let's be polite, alleged, if we must. But anyway.
You're referring to Beta Edu?
No, well, yes, Beta Edu, that's it, God.
Because
it's amazing how trauma
had issues of money, isn't it?
Yeah, but this, exactly, right? But who is the current one? And what is she or he doing? Where is the Minister of Women's Affairs? Because children also fall under the Women's Affairs Ministry. Where is she? So we can't say government is overwhelmed. That's why President Tinubu has, the biggest government cabinet in history, is giving the job to Imam Ibrahim. Well, somebody needs to question and say, what are you doing? Why is she not telling the press? Why is she not telling the people of Nigeria? Given what's going on, given these resurgences, these are the plans that we have. Because really, whatever we want to say about the GEJ's time, there were several plans that were put in place. Strategies were discussed. They worked with the international communities. They worked with the UN. Well, who's doing that now?
I think it's very important here, because you're right. We do need policy and strategies coming from the ministry. But I also want us to take it down to the local level, because we're talking about collapse of institutions, whether that be schools, whether that be healthcare. A lot of those are within the remit of the governors, the local governments, who are now receiving historically high FAC allocations. Historically high FAC allocations. So I think let's move away a little bit from the center and go to those who are in the local government. How significant is the collapse or failure of local government, of direct governance, leading to this incessant discrimination and violence that's being meted out upon women and children?
Incredibly significant. I mean, one of the initiatives one of the factors in healing strategy is community-based initiatives, right? And that is local government. And you're right. Which local government? So you have all these local governments. Who is investing in this? But before the local, everybody has a responsibility. Yes, whilst the responsibility, the buck stops at the top. Who is asking the governor? And then the governor, who is asking the local government chairman? So one of the things that happens in in violence and war, and especially with girls, is that they are automatically immediately removed from school. You mentioned schools, right? Hospitals. We saw the same thing. I mean, there's a reason why Israel continued to bomb hospitals. It wasn't just to fight Hamas. It's because women, they need help. They're the ones that get pregnant and all of that stuff. So when you destroy all this civic infrastructure, right, by and large, you affect women. When you destroy the markets, by and large, you affect women. And when you affect women, you affect the children, right? So like you said, what is the local government doing? And why are we not calling out these local government chairmen? Because it's almost like they're invisible, right? I don't know of any local government in Nigeria that's run by AI. Right? So, no, really, it's time we start calling them out.
No, I think I agree here, and I just want to hone in on this because I understand why we often focus on we personalize government in Nigeria, and so you personalize the ministry in the name of the minister, and we personalize a lot of things in the name of the president. But there are so many people who share responsibility for everything that goes down all the way to the local government. Our primary healthcare centers have nothing to do with Pate mostly, or the president, our minister of health. They have to do with the local government who are supposed to.
Yeah, but what is Pate doing? You see, that's the thing, though. You can't draw a map or a plan for 4 years in office, right, and not draw a communication strategy. What is Pate doing to ensure that, look, we have 774 local governments. What is he doing to discuss with the governors? Which point does he talk to commissioners of health, in different states? So it does stop with him, and we're using his name because he's the person that's there. And after all, he's getting paid. And we all know where our taxes are going to be going to, right? There's a tax reform. If you're going to get paid for my money, you better be answering questions. And I will use your job. When you're out of there, your name, when you're out of there, we will use the name of the next person. But I'm glad you mentioned Pate. What has he said? Has he actually even, you see, we keep talking, we hear a lot about the kinetic and non-kinetic, the new buzzwords in Nigeria. If I hear it one more time, honestly, I would do Jugono and Kung Fu to somebody. Because it's talking at people, not talking to people. If I'm a victim, a survivor of the violence that happened in Kwara recently, and I'm watching the TV, and I'm hearing them talking about, the kinetic approach is this, the non-kinetic approach is that. I'm thinking, I don't understand. My family was killed. Okay, whilst the non-kinetic approach is important, tell people what that non-kinetic approach is and the plan you have for it. How are you going to implement it within the society, within the community, within the local government? Because non-kinetic approach is, if you like, part of what we're talking about.
Yeah, but they usually apply that to interventions of, in terms of security. What you do and what you don't do. But that's not, I get your point.
This is what I'm
I get
saying.
your point, Ireti.
Non-kinetic approach is people-driven.
Yeah.
Because unemployment, for instance.
Yeah.
Jobs. There's a reason why they say the devil makes use of idle
What would
hands.
you say to the authorities concerned in in Kwara State? Rivers. Because it's important and we run out of time. But then Kwara is burning. Now, there was an attempt for the bandits to return, but just because the soldiers are there. But the soldiers are just basically to guard, the situation and ward off. But then we saw an 100-year-old woman who says, my entire people have been wiped out. And I was trying to make a sense of Ngugi wa Thiong'o that said, weep not child. Are we going to say to her, weep not mama? Are we going to say to people in Kwara, weep not people? So what would you highlight in just 1 minute that should be happening as at today in terms of rehabilitation, in terms of trauma management, in terms of giving people hope in Kwara State today?
If the government can still find the number for the likes of Dr. Fatima Akilu, call her, beg her, tell her to come and help you. to actually design a strategy for healing, reparation. Look, that's number one. Number two is, you talked about Kwara. The governor of Kwara is perhaps one of the most elusive. We don't really see him. We only just started seeing him now. And that doesn't mean we have to, if you're doing
People
good work.
see him in Abuja quite often.
He's done almost 7 years, by the way.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm not going to say the last time I saw him, but anyway, where I saw him last. But my point is, I saw him making, he was talking to the press the other day, and they give these sound bites. But okay, fine, you haven't got time to talk much.
Yeah.
You're there for sound bites. Are you working with the Commissioner of Health? Every state has Women's Affairs Commission. Are you working with them? That's what you need to do immediately. Find the experts, the psychologists, the trauma experts within your state, within each state, and get them working. But by God, I haven't spoken to Dr. Fatima Akilu. I think I've probably only ever met her once. So she'll have to forgive me. I'm looking at I don't even know, but I will keep going on about her because she did incredible work. So I'm asking her to forgive me because I keep going on about, in case her phone starts ringing.
And there will be a number of people like her.
There are many like her. Yeah. But that's the thing. She will be able to put them through to other people like that. So that's one of the things that needs to happen. Yeah. Number two is that you need to give people their sense of humanity back. If you're, I know the press were there and they're doing their stuff and everything. The military are not the nicest people to civilians.
They're not trained to be too nice.
Nigerian
even
military.
they're officers.
Exactly. So bring in the police, if you like, more female police officers, because the police are supposed to be the security that's closest to the people. Right? Not the military. Most of us don't like them. Guns still scare me. Never mind the man in an army uniform. So they need to do that with immediate effect. Number three is, if you keep throwing and pushing people into an IDP camp, you are literally creating another market for terrorism. So you need to stop doing that.
Absolutely.
By now, every state, the government, federal government, I mean, they have these meetings, they have every Wednesday, what's it called again?
Yes.
Right, by now, there should be a plug and play strategy. How to do, what to do, every
if it happens elsewhere.
Absolutely. All the state governors, there should be an agreement on what to do immediately. Response. Now, this is what we do. And you plug it and you play it and the people are aware.
You're asking them to be proactive instead of reacting after the fact.
But that's the way to go, isn't it?
I have a habit of asking too much of these people, don't I?
But of course, we hope that they are listening and that things will change.
Yeah.
Kwara is an example. Kaduna is bad as it is. Borno says that they are closing IDP camps because people can return to work, but then we see what is happening.
But then what happens when they return to work? What safety, what security? We don't even have enough policemen. I mean, we talk about the Bobby on the beach. I laugh when people are complaining in London, no, you can't walk in London now. What are you talking about? You can walk in London, but yet they're still asking for more policemen on the streets of London, let alone in places like Borno.
Well, people are asking for state police now in Nigeria. So we're going to see.
The president wants state police, so we just have to wait and see how fast.
And the National Assembly says they want state police as well. So I wonder what's delaying it.
My question about state police is, you're still going to have the same human, Nigerian human, who is going to be controlling them.
That will be a topic for another one.
Yeah.
Ireti, Bakare-Yusuf, we want to thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Always fun with you guys.
Thank you.